start with the 28 years later. 28 years later. Now, guys, I did an update on 28 months later back 8 years ago. 2015. And this was when I first started my channel. And I was putting out like reviews but every now and then if there was an update that really kind of tickled my fancy, I would put out a video on it. And I did one for Halloween. And I think maybe updates were a lot bigger back then, 8 years ago, than they are now, because this is back when I had like maybe a couple hundred subscribers. And I put out this Halloween update. And that thing got like 15,000 views. And this is way before the David Gordon Green trilogy. Okay, this is 2000. This was before. This was when they were actually in like pre-production for Marcus Dunstan's Halloween Returns. Okay, and I was covering that, and I would, if anything big came out, I'd put out an update. But then another property that I really love is 28 Days Later. And they were going to do it 28 months later, and I thought, hey, I'll put out an update for that, And that thing got like 30,000 views. So I still, to this day, get comments on those 28 months later updates. I've done 2 or 3 of them now. I did one, then we heard nothing for like 4 years. Then I did another one. And, it looked like it was going to get off the ground. We were going to get a 28 months later. Crickets. And that thing has like, I think, almost 40,000 views. So 4 years have gone by. We've heard nothing, and it seemed like the whole project was dead in the water. And then just a couple days ago, a few little updates came out. Cillian Murphy said he would be happy to come back, and it'd be called 28 Years Later, because if you remember, the first one I think was in 2001, somewhere around there. So we're 23 years later right now, so why not call it 28 years later, right? We're going to leapfrog over 28 months, which is, I wish they would have made 28 months later like maybe 4 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever, but I got excited. There's something about this particular franchise, and I know some of you get upset if I call them zombies. Let's just say they're zombies' bastard cousin, okay? I don't know what you want to call them. The virus, it's a rage virus. But they're pretty much these creatures that are running after you, sort of like zombies do. Because there are running zombies too, guys, right? So I put them in the zombie family, okay? And if you tell me they're not zombies, I'm not going to argue with you, okay? You're right. I'm wrong. But, yeah. So, let's read this article here. Okay? Cillian Murphy is ready to make 28 Years Later. Now, I chose this. I've never heard of this exclaim, but this is actually being covered under a few other sites. But this one isn't riddled with ads, so maybe this, but it's kind of the same gist. So this is reputable, okay? Or it's legit, all right? Most people agree that 28 Weeks Later was a bit of a flop compared to its predecessor, even though, by the way, I prefer 8 Weeks Later. I love 28 Weeks Later. 2002's excellent team-up of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland that was 28 Days Later. The post-apocalyptic horror family Cillian Murphy. The sequel arguably faltered due to a number of factors, namely Garland and Boyle's backseat roles, but also Murphy's absence. See, I disagree with all those. I really do. I think the movie was phenomenal. Just because a movie doesn't perform well at the box office doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It could be timing, could be a bunch of different factors, but most people I talk to love Weeks. So, you got Jeremy Renner in there. It just felt bigger, But I think 28 Days Later is great, but it's also kind of a novelty because of the way it was filmed. It was filmed in like, what do you call it? Just like DAT video or whatever. They used just a basic video camera for it, from like the year 2000. It was one of those like handy cams or whatever you call them, right? So, while on the Oppenheimer press circuit, the acclaimed actor revealed in conversation with Collider that he's very interested in doing 28 Years Later. It's only been 20 years, but who's counting? On one condition. And this is Cillian Murphy stating, I was talking to Danny Boyle recently, and I said, Danny, we shot the movie at the end of 2000. So I think we're definitely approaching the 28 years later, Murphy said. But like I've always said, I'm up for it. I'd love to do it. If Alex Garland thinks there's a script in it and Danny wants to do it, then I'd love to do it. And there is a script. There is a 28 months later script. So Garland and Boyle have already discussed the possibility of making 28 months later, but ultimately abandoned the idea. In 2019, they further hinted at the possibility, but it wasn't until recently, speaking with Inverse, that Garland shared his interest in bringing the rage back for years, sharing that though he resisted making a sequel for a long time because there were things about 28 Weeks that bugged me, he ultimately decided, fuck that. I'd rather try to write a different story in a different world. He continued, a few years ago, an idea materialized in my head for what would be really 28 years later, Danny. Danny always liked the idea. And Boyle added, we're talking about it quite seriously, quite diligently. If he doesn't want to direct it himself, I'll be well up for it if we can execute a similarly good idea. Here's hoping they also get John Murphy back on to do the soundtrack. Yeah, that soundtrack is phenomenal. The original compositions were all bangers, some of which graced this writer's MySpace profile in 2007. And Brian Eno and Godspeed You. Black Emperor's contributions didn't hurt either. Yeah, that's another thing too. I've always loved that score, you know. And I think that score's been used in a couple of other movies too. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much the news on 28 years later. There is interest. Cillian Murphy wants to do it. Danny Boyle sounds like he wants to do it. They have an idea for years. Does that mean we're going to have to wait another 4 years for anything to materialize? God, I hope not. You know, and I think we need, like, it's time for the quote-unquote zombie movie to return. I know that there's Walking Dead, but like Walking Dead's, I haven't been watching any of it, but I hear it's not that good now. You know? But we haven't had like a resurgence in, you know, in the cinema for zombie movies. And wouldn't it be cool if 28 years later is the one that kind of kicked it off again, right? Or whatever you want to call it, rage virus. But I still put them in the same category, right? Like I have a zombies playlist on my channel, and I mean, wouldn't you put them in your zombies playlist so you don't confuse things? Right? What other playlist would you put it in? That's the way I look at it. So, yeah. Here's hoping that 28 years later comes. Please, please, please. I'm definitely clipping this out, though. Maybe I'll get another 30,000 views on it, right? I doubt it. But, you know, I don't care about the views. I love this franchise. I want another 28 movie. So bad. So bad. What do you guys think? Do you like the 28 franchise? What's up, guys? You are at the end of the DD Live clip. What I do is I like to clip these out if I think the topic is important or something that's newsworthy. So thank you for watching. And if you want to watch more, you can go over here. You can go over here, click on one of those. And yeah, hopefully I can do this for 20 seconds, which I think I did. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching, guys.